Welcome, everybody, to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today, I have a special lady from the Bay Area, Tisha Cain. Tisha is a CEO, founder, artist, published author, doctor of law. She has her law degree. Tisha, thank you for being on Pro Mindset today.
Thank you so much for having me, Craig.
Okay, so young lady, this is what we're going to do. You're going to introduce yourself. You have so many accolades. Your resume is so long. Just share with our audience what you would like them to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have more little letters at the end of my name than most people. I'm really proud. I'm a straight A student. I've had 17 years in college. In my past life, about 9 years ago, I was CEO for some big Fortune 500 companies running trucks. I don't know if you've ever seen the ice road truckers that go up into Alaska. But I was the one running those trucks. We'd pick up the berries out of California, run them up the I-5 corridor into Alaska, turn on the heaters, heat the berries, and get them into all the stores. So I am recently a published author. I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I work on mindset and changing the power of your mind, and that allows you to change your life. There isn't anything I haven't done or won't do. I'm one of those unicorns, I guess, if you want to call me one of those. I love all things power tools, things building, structuring. Yeah, so I do it all, and it's great.
Okay, so let's focus on one thing for this next segment. How can people change their life by changing their thinking? What is like the formula? What is like it's in your toolbox per se, as far as like this is the framework for changing your thinking so you can change your mind?
Yeah, and this is what I preach is the remedy is within. So the framework is once to go within, because I think all of our resources and all of our solutions are within. Get quiet, quiet your mind, find out what God has for you, and just ask the right questions. Sometimes you can't get to those questions by yourself, and that's why you hire a coach. That's why you hire someone to come in and ask those questions to get you out the victim mindset, the lack mindset, and propel you forward, going forward.
Okay. So does that have anything to do with tapping into your purpose? I mean, what is the element, or what is the procedure for evaluating your mindset today and realizing that your circumstances today reflect your mindset today, and that if you want your circumstances tomorrow to be different, you've got to change your mindset for tomorrow.
That's right. And so I believe in the cliche is if you keep doing what you've always done, you've always going to get what you've always got, right? So if you look at your life, and I use the life pie or the wheel of life, and I look at all aspects of that. So in a session with me, we go in and we break it down. We look at your financials. Where are you on a scale to 1 to 10? We look at your health and nutrition. Where are you? So looking at all those different categories in your life, where are you and where do you want to be? And then the lowest of those categories, we look at your relationship with money. We look at your relationship with your friends and family. And if you have a tribe and community you can lean on. And more importantly, I love to focus on voluntary discomfort. Are you putting yourself in voluntary discomfort to go ahead and make changes? And it takes radical action. There's healing in the action, right? So taking radical action to change and get you out of the boxes that you've been playing in for however long. So looking at those categories and looking at those aspects of your life to really dial in and focus on where you are and where do you want to go.
It's identifying the gap.
Yes, right. And that's what I'm a gap filler, gap closer. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And sometimes, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame, right? Like that was outside of your awareness because you're sitting here every day doing the same thing. And I'm like, so why don't we just tap into this? Or what did you used to do as a child, right? And let's do that and bring up your fun and adventure up to a 10. Right? If we're not living this exquisite, beautiful life, then what are we doing here?
Live a life with no regrets.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about voluntary discomfort. What does
Mm.
that mean?
So, voluntary discomfort is putting yourself in spaces that make you feel uncomfortable voluntarily. So, this could look like, so I practice in court a lot, on the criminal side. When I first started going to court, I was like, oh my goodness, am I worthy enough? Am I good enough to be arguing up here? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to jump in. And I had those butterflies and my temperature rose and I was putting myself voluntarily there. And in doing so, I grew, right? Or if you take a look at your fitness, right? If you're doing the same old thing and you're like, okay, I'm lifting weights every day and I'm lifting 25 pounds. Well, let's put ourselves in voluntary discomfort. If you're always lifting 25 pounds, you're not growing that muscle. So let's, you know, lift 30 and do that for, 4 weeks. So really stepping in and putting yourself outside of your comfort zone is what's important.
So to me, that also means take a risk,
Oh, absolutely.
do something new,
Yeah.
do something different, try something
New.
new.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has an idea or concept of what they'd like to be, who they like to be, but they're scared and they have fear about even getting there. And the only way you can get there is to take one step towards whatever you desire, which is going to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. And baby steps, small steps, where if fear, and that's what I love with hypnosis is I do a emotional change technique where I can go back to the root of your fear and where you anchored that in as a child, whether it be this life or past life, if you believe in that. And we clear up energetically where that fear is anchored in. And most times people say, Tisha, I cannot believe that was holding me back. And I feel so light. I feel like my vessel has been cleared out, like I'm empty, like I can create now. And so having that fear hold you back is something that I love to work on. Like, okay, great. Fear is easy for me, right?
Here's what I found, and very similar to what you just said. No scientific evidence, no education in this area, no masters and PhDs or anything like that. But we only remember things we have an emotional connection to.
Mm.
So our memories are a bank of emotions. So if you
Mm.
think about your honeymoon, you think about some exciting thing that happened in your life, you don't remember every detail.
Right.
You only remember those big moments where you had an emotion of being proud, being happy, feeling joy, feeling seen, feeling heard, all those things.
Right.
But on the flip side, the negative is the same. You only remember the things that you have an emotional trauma about.
You.
And it manifests itself today, whether it happened 5 years ago or 20 years ago, and manifests today as a fear. It wasn't fear then. It was
Right.
pain. It was anger. It was embarrassment. It was shame. It was something. But today it shows up as fear. So when I talk to my people, I help them understand that the emotion that you had at the time of the situation is different than the emotion you have today. And it
True.
shows up today as a blocker for moving forward because of the emotion that was attached to it back then.
That's
But
right. And
how
I've
do
seen
you,
that in my practice too. So, where they've anchored in a different emotion that happened back there and it's kind of transmuted and changed into fear and it's holding them back. So, when I deal with a lot of athletes, I don't know what's happened recently, but college athletes who are having a mental to get to the next level where they physically trained, they're in their body, they're doing all the things, ice cold plunges, they're working out, they're doing all those things, but they can't fix the mind. And so under hypnosis, I'll go in and change the mindset to remove those blocks to get them to the next level. And whatever that looks like to them, they're like, whoa, I didn't realize that was anchored in way back then. So it's such a fascinating thing.
I want to know more about hypnosis, but I want to make a comment before we go there. What I find is that you can have the best intentions, the best training, the best regimen, all these things. Your daily schedule, your programs, your systems, your habits are phenomenal. and you're trying to get from point A to point B. Let's say you're trying to make the Olympics, or you're trying to go to the pros, or, as an athlete. And when you get a moment, the truth is revealed.
Mm.
When the coach that hated on you in the grade, or your dad who was angry because he was stressed out about his work, came home and said, hey, you don't work hard enough. Or some parent on the drive home from a game, when the kid's in the 4th grade, says, hey, you know what, you're not any good. When they really didn't mean that. But they probably meant something like, hey, I'd like to see you work or play harder, give more effort, because that's really all you can evaluate is effort at that age. But they evaluated their competency, which was incorrect. But the kid has Velcro. There's Teflon and there's Velcro. Teflon, you let it roll off your back. Velcro, it sticks. But when it sticks, we have a tendency as humans to put it in our minds and hide it, put it in a closet, lock the door, throw away the key, all those types of things, and it doesn't show up. We're training, we're working, we're competing in things that are kind of important, but not ultimately important. But when we get to the finals, when we get to the tryout, when we get to that like epic moment, it comes back.
Mm.
And it manifests itself as doubt. Because now you're not sure if you're worthy. You're not sure if you're good enough. You're not sure if you believe what that person told you or what you're telling yourself.
Right.
You're having a tug of war between, you're having an identity crisis because you have earned the right to be what you're doing. But 15 years ago, when you were in elementary school, that coach, that teacher, that parent, or that friend told you a lie that you think is a truth.
Mm.
So now let's jump into hypnosis. How does that work?
How does hypnosis work? So basically, there's levels of awareness and awakening, right? So we have the beta, the alpha, the theta state. So I take you down to the theta state. And all hypnosis is, a lot of people say, well, it's against my religion to do hypnosis. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's talk about this real quick. What hypnosis is just self-hypnosis, right? So if you've ever been in your automobile and you're traveling from point A to point B, and you get over to point B and you're like, wow, I don't really remember all the roads that I took to get here, but I'm here now. That's hypnosis, right? And all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, a deep meditation at that theta state. So what we do is get you into that theta state, that deep, where the wavelengths, not a delta sleep where you're totally out sleeping, but right before that, where everything's in a meditative state. And we go back in and I guide you through a process, go back in to have you recall. And I even do a forensic memory regression. So we go back and you don't really realize what's there in your brain or what you've locked down until you get there. So like I've done hypnosis where we recalled a license plate that in a robbery, right? So they're like, I saw the car, but I can't recall the license plate number. I said, well, did you see the license plate number? Yes, but I can't recall those numbers. So I take you back in a theta state and have you recall what was there from the past. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I didn't really believe in hypnosis until hypnosis was used on me to get rid of suffering. Because I had a strong hold on sadness. Sadness was my flavor, right? And so through the power of hypnosis, in one session, my husband was like, wow, I've got an upgraded wife. And I knew I had to learn this modality to be able to help and alleviate suffering on planet Earth. I knew I just had to, if it changed my life so drastically, I knew I had to learn this and be able to deploy it out into the community and help save lives.
If you don't mind, share the change, the Tisha 2.0 after the hypnosis compared to your normal state before.
Yeah. So during hypnosis, I got so much awareness about when I anchored in that sadness. And it was just real short. It was when I was 3 years old and my aunt had committed suicide. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table and had her hand on her forehead, just crying, wailing. And I saw my 3-year-old little self off to the side, not comprehending what mom was going through. And I anchored in that sadness at age 3. So as I went back on and did this emotional change technique, I went back in my timeline to every spot in the past where I had this sadness. And when I found where I anchored it in at 3, I gave myself those resources that I needed at 3. So what did little Tisha need at 3? She needed her mom to just grab her and hug her and say, everything's going to be okay. Mommy needs to cry right now. Everything's going to be okay. I also anchored in the feeling of being cold. So I was confused. I was cold. That's why I hated being cold as an adult, because I anchored it into sadness. So once I had this awareness of where I anchored that in, my clinical hypnotherapist took me back one step back before that event had happened. And what I realized, and this was so profound, and awareness is healing, right? What I realized is one step back from where I was playing, it was I don't want to date myself here, but 1980s. I had my little record player and I was playing Eye of the Tiger. And that has been my hype song in the gym my whole entire life. And I now, through hypnosis, understood that that came from my 3-year-old self right before I anchored in sadness. And I had awareness around why I love that song, because it was right before I anchored that in. And so Tisha 2.0, after this, that awareness of like, wow, all I needed was a hug at that moment. And my mom was just doing the best she could with what she knew. And I could go back and hug that little girl and give her what she needed to no longer have a strong hold on suffering. And it was that moment, it was like 10 years had lifted off my face. My husband said, wow, I didn't realize how much that cleared everything out. And I said, I didn't realize it either, but whatever this is, just that awareness from the past of how I did that and why I did that was so much healing.
So let's go through the healing process. Awareness is number 1. What's number 2?
Just so awareness, and then identifying what were those key triggers that held you back. And then number 3 would take like radical action to realize that, hey, that doesn't have a strong arm on you anymore. Like you can change your life through the power of mindset. Like, okay, I get it now. Now let's move forward. I no longer need that. I know it's no longer needed in my life because there's awareness around it.
This may or may not apply, but one of the things I do with my clients and my coaching is I walk them through reframing that trauma and how, in some bizarre way, it's actually helped you. And changing the emotion that was connected to that event.
Yeah.
And so for you, I don't know how this would flow with your and align with your philosophy and perspective, but that music, Eye of the Tiger, that was the boxing movie, right?
Yeah.
Right? That was the theme song for Rocky.
Yeah.
So what happens is I would help you reframe that song and that situation is that's where you got your fight. That's where you got your ambition. That's where you got this will to go be somebody in this world that's done, you've accomplished a lot of things. Where did that drive come from? It came from when you were 3. That's a whole different way to look at it, right?
Yeah, it's so great.
It made you sad, but it also, when you relook at it, it gave you the fight to overcome adversity, to eliminate blocks, to block out the noise, to persevere, to have willpower, all these things that most people just settle for, hey, 9 to 5, I'm good.
Yeah. No, and I love that because, I think here, and that's a good reframe for me too, is I think, God, or, we pray to Gus, God, universe, and spirit. God anchored that in right before life got hard, right? So that fight, that will to survive was anchored in because he knew, well, up ahead. And yet I didn't know, but it was anchored in to say, hey, we're going to give you this and it's going to carry you through. And not understanding or comprehending that was the pivotal moment to know that everything that I needed was already inside of me. It was already given to me. And so thank you. You reframed that even further for me. It was so great. So great.
Well, one of the things that I would do is I would have you identify all the things that happened to you negatively that caused you sadness between 3 and now, and all the successes you've experienced between 3 and now because of your like warrior spirit that you got when you were 3. And then by basically reframing the trauma, but magnifying the warrior fighter. And by doing that, it changes your whole perspective.
Right.
Because now you're glad it actually.
Right. You give blessings for that. You bet.
Absolutely. So that's the ultimate reframe, is when you can look back at something that happened to you, not for you, but
Right.
it really was for you.
That's right.
But your whole life you thought it was to you.
Right. That's exactly right. And this is what you talk about in your book too, like pro mindset, having that life is happening for you, not to you. And once you get out of, effect and into cause, to really comprehend that you are the cause of everything and you get to cause this life, that's where it gets to be so beautiful.
Let's talk about athletes for a second.
Yeah.
The Olympics is coming up. It's already started. The Olympics has already started. Every one of these Olympians, almost everyone, has overcome some major adversity. They were told by a doc at some point in time they were never going to be able to walk again, not going to be able to do something again. That was their blessing, was the driver. Because training for the Olympics isn't sexy. I mean, it's stressful, and you only get to do it every 4 years. And, if your age doesn't match up with the calendar, you might be too young to do it when you're ready, and you might be too old to do it, those type of things. So with your experience in working with athletes, what is the number one reason, diagnosis that you find that is common to a lot of athletes?
Yeah, what I found recently, and and you kind of already touched on this, is right when they get to that pivotal moment of, okay, put me in the game, coach. It's like this visceral feeling of, am I worthy? Am I good enough? So I deal with a lot of, I'm not good enough. Like, really, is this for me? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I worthy of this next phase of my life? So they get right to that edge, and it's either they have to make a life defining decision. Like, am I worthy and propel yourself forward, or am I going to keep playing small? And so that's what I've been dealing with, is a lot of not good enough, and then major emotions like anger, sadness, fear. Fear comes up a lot. Anger, sadness, grief, fear, not good enough. But it's that one of not good enough. And and then they give me their laundry list of things that they have done, like over and over. And I'm like, what? And you're sitting here telling me that you don't believe that you can make it to the next piece of this? It's like, let me reframe this for you. Like, can I turn this around and show you what you just listed to me from someone sitting on the outside, has no connection to, sports on the inside, And you just gave me a laundry list of all of the things that you have accomplished. You've been training for 4 years for the Olympics. You've been, in the game every day. You have an epic 5 a.m. morning routine. You've done all this other stuff. And I just really look them in the eye and say, really? Huh, that's interesting.
Tisha,
And then
I want to
it's
jump.
like
I want
this
to jump
face
in.
goes wonky.
Tell me why. Why do they feel unworthy? You gave me all the reasons why they should feel worthy.
Right.
Why do they feel unworthy? What is the root cause of that? Because everything you told me was why they shouldn't.
Well, I think it's as simple as they're a child of God, right? They're a child of God. They're meant to live in their bigness. So why should you not feel worthy? Maybe they're fearful still, right? Maybe they're holding on. There's so many different things that come up because their families have never been in this position, right? And so they go to their families and they think, maybe I'm just not good enough. I give this analogy about the lonely table. And typically what happens is the athlete is sitting at a table with their family. They're sitting at the table with their neighbors, with their friends from high school, and it's good. They're eating supper. They're having a great time. And they're sitting there and thinking, I want to be over there at that table with the greats. I want to be over there with the best Olympians. I want to be over there with all the people who inspire me to get me to that next level. And so they leave their regular table and they go sit at the big table now, right? And so they're eating bread and they eat breakfast and they're like, wow, their minds blown, right? They're like, I'm finally at this table with the greats, right? And then they eat lunch with them. And then a little bit of mindset shifts. Am I good enough? Wow, we're having exquisite conversation. We're having deep dives. These people are getting ready to blow their businesses out of the water. Oh, I don't know. Am I good enough? And so you get to supper time and you're like, I don't know. So you leave and you go back and you sit at the table with your family and friends. And now it just feels crunchy and wonky, right? You're like, wow, I just had a taste of sitting at this table with the major pros. And it was great, but I didn't feel good enough. And now I'm sitting over here with my family and my neighbors and where I've always been. And then now I don't fit here either. So then they leave that table again and then they go and sit at the lonely table. And for a while, the lonely table is beautiful, right? They get to pull out all the puzzle pieces out of the box. They get to have the whole table to themselves. But after a while, it just gets lonely. They're there by themselves where they know they've outgrown where they've come from and they don't feel worthy enough or good enough to go to sit with the pros. So they sit at the table, the lonely table, and they just sit there way too long. So then my question becomes is, how long are you going to sit at the lonely table? And they just look at me and like, wow, yeah, I've been sitting at the lonely table for a long, long time. Okay, so what are we doing? Healing is in the doing. What are we doing to get you at? Do you want to go back to the table that it's so familiar and it's everything that you're known? Or do you want to grow yourselves to new levels? Do you want to challenge yourself to new levels that you never thought possible? Because I'm your cheerleader and I want you to go wherever you want to go and I'm going to be here to support you. What do you want to do? And then have them get laser focused on what that looks like.
What I heard you just describe, and I'm going to use your analogy, but I'm going to use different word pictures, is the concept of that's where the adversity is. It's where the mental struggle is. It's where the wilderness is. It's boot camp. It's training camp. It's that in-between stage when you could go back to who you used to be, or you can step forward into becoming who you planned and wanted to be, and that God blessed you with the talents to be. And it's the most difficult place. It's the most uncomfortable place. It's the place of growth. It's the place of change. And people don't like to be there.
Right.
Nobody wants to be, nobody, if there's other people at other tables, nobody wants to sit by themselves. Right? And my perspective on unworthiness is that God designed us to be perfectly imperfect.
Mm.
And the reason why he designed us to be perfectly imperfect is he wanted to walk with us on this journey called life. And if he designed us perfectly perfect, we wouldn't need him. Okay? And the second thing is, I talk about in my book, Identity Killers. Two of those are perfection and
Absolutely.
the thing that pops up the most often from comparison is either you're not good enough or you're not worthy. And with perfection, it's unworthy. Because you're comparing yourself to a perfect standard that no humans ever attained. No athletes ever batted 1,000 in baseball in a season. No football players ever completed every pass. I mean, I could go through all the different sports.
Yep.
Nobody's ever done it. And nobody expects you to, except you. You have this crazy mindset that you're supposed to be perfect. But you're not. It's acceptable to be less than perfect. So when I talk to sports people, and I didn't know this when I was coaching youth sports. I wish I did. Sometimes you learn things after the fact. It's not about winning. It's about being your best. And John Wooden talks about the idea that, you really lose if you win and you didn't play your best.
Right. I love that.
And you really win if you played your best, but you didn't win. And so the concept of worthiness should be, can you be your best? And if you're doing your best, being your best, performing your best, not perfect, but your best, you're good. That's all you can do. That's all you can expect. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's great. I think, a lot of times in my past, I was hustling for my worth and wanting to be perfect. I'm a straight A student, all those things, and having to do a deep dive into that and realizing I'm not, and realizing my 4% give is bigger than most people's 100% give, and being gentle with myself and allowing myself be softer and be easier on, because no one can be harder on me than me, right? And so giving myself the grace to say, you know what, I went out there, I tried my best, I gave it my all, I played full out. And that's how I do this life now. Is in the past I didn't do that, but I do that now. Is everything I do, I'm all in. I risk it all. I'm all in. Put me in the game. Let's play full out. And at the other end of that, at that voluntary discomfort, I'm leaps and bounds from where I used to be because I played full out. And so that's what I would tell people is, whatever you got in trouble for as a kid in school, like I always got in trouble for, Tisha, sit down and be quiet, sit down and be quiet. Right. So that's actually your superpower, right? No, I'm here meant to live a big life. I'm here to have a bigger impact, and finding what that is and playing full out in life with no comparison, knowing I'm authentically, perfectly made. There's such beauty in that. And there's a lot of relief and comfort in knowing, hey, if I get in here and today I do the best I can with what I have, and I do the best I can with what I know, winning, hashtag winning, right? And giving myself that grace to say, good job, good job.
I would say that the majority of relationships that are struggling are because people don't love themselves first. And when I was listening to you, I was hearing you share your growth in loving yourself. And as you've been on this journey coaching other people, you're also giving yourself grace and giving yourself permission to love who God created you to be.
Mm.
And when you're in that space, you're more lovable.
Mm.
And then you're also easier to give love. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times when I'm coaching people about performance, it comes back to relationships too.
Mm.
And they struggle in their relationships because they don't know why. But the reason why is because they don't even love themselves.
Yeah,
It's hard to be loved if you don't love you.
that's so true. And that's why I teach is the remedy is within. You have to start with yourself. And this is essentially what I did is I remember like putting on my lipstick in the mirror and just putting on it and leaving because I couldn't stand looking at myself in the mirror until finally I stood there and said, let me check her out. And that was hard. I remember the tears just flowing because I was like, ooh, I never really even looked at myself. Right. And how do I love myself deeper? And I remember once I started loving on myself and really feeling my cup so full. And I still do that this to this day is I get up at 5 a.m. I have an epic 5 a.m. morning routine. I did the 75 day hard last October and then or 2 years October. And then this year I did the 75. I created a 75 day soft where, you know, I was always in my masculine hustling, you know, do for that 75 day hard. And then I did the 75 day soft where I was like, nope, I'm going to be doing yoga. I'm going to be doing meditation. I'm going to do journaling. I'm going to do, 10 minutes of red light therapy, 10 minutes of sauna, just really starting the day soft, filling from my cup, loving myself at levels that I never thought possible. Then the confidence came online. Then the awareness came online. Then the capacity to hold more for my husband and my children was bigger because I started loving myself and filling my cup first before anybody else got me. And so that has changed my life is that self-love and really saying, hey, I love myself enough. I gotta come back home. Let me come back home. And then I could help save the world. It's been so good.
So I'm guessing that your relationship, your partner relationship and your parent relationship have both gotten better because the common denominator in both those relationships is who?
Yeah, me.
You, right? So walk us through your epic morning routine as of today, because you've gone through these different, experimented with different things. What have you landed on?
Yes. So thank you for asking. So what I've landed on is I know I'm highly disciplined. Because in the past, I wouldn't give myself grace to ever, be a B student. I'm highly disciplined. As I was going through law school, my cohorts were reading legal. I was simultaneously reading lawful. And I just prayed and said, God, I need to get through this lawful, the legal, because that's not really what I want to read. I want to read the lawful. I want to go to the Bible. I want you to show me the word. Please just let me have a photographic memory and show me what I need to know, pull out the rule of law, the IRAC system, get that done so I can come over here and really do what I want to do. So in that, knowing what I want to do, when I started my morning routine, I was very disciplined and okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes of affirmations, 10 minutes of oracle card pull, 10 minutes of red light therapy, 10 minutes of cold plunge, 10 minutes of sauna, 10 minutes of yoga. And I was looking at my list and I was thinking, wow, can you stop already? I was like frustrated with myself because I was so disciplined in that. And so where I've landed today is really intuitively, one, being in my body and out of my head, right? Because as lawyers, we're always in our heads. So getting in my body and really intuitively leading myself. Whereas if I found a song, because music puts me in my body. If I found a song that really moved me, allowing myself to find another song versus, 10 minutes is up. Now you need to move on to the next thing. Again, going softer, allowing myself to move throughout the morning intuitively versus being highly disciplined and making sure that, okay, I got, 30 things checked off my list today. I do more before the sun comes up than most people do all day, right? So just allowing myself to say, okay, stop the nonsense. What feeds your soul? What feeds your soul? And allowing myself to go there.
I love that. What you described to me was you had hard and fast deadlines, orders, boundaries that you were just, it was almost like you were checking boxes before.
Yeah.
Now you're watering what needs to be watered. What your needs are, you're fulfilling those needs. Because some days you might need a cold plunge, other days you don't.
Right.
Right? And some days you may need affirmations, and other days maybe you don't.
Yeah.
And so it's really about customizing your morning routine on a need basis rather than a have to basis.
Mm. Yeah. And in most mornings, I don't know what I need. And I just kind of give it up to God and say, okay, who do you need me to be in this moment? And relinquishing and surrendering to the moment has what I really been learning. Wow. There's been so much insight and guidance in the power of stillness and in the power of not doing, in the power of being, because I think in the past, being in corporate America, that's, made me operate so much in my masculine, whereas this part, I get to be softer and I get to operate more in my feminine. I watched how when I sat at the seat of my feminine and I allowed myself to be softer, what happened was my husband stepped up in his position as as the man that he is. And I watched him bloom. I was like, wow. I would always say, well, I'm the family manager. I have this all planned out. Let's go. And my husband kind of got tired of me saying that. And one day he leaned over, he goes, you know what? You may be the family manager, but I'm the family guardian. I protect us. And whoa, that's sexy. Once I sat back and got softer and allowed him to lead our family, knowing I have the capability to, save the planet in 2 hours if I need to, but allowing my husband to really step up in his divine masculine while I sat at the seat of my divine feminine, our relationship even got better.
We learn a lot from our kids as our kids get older. I've got a 29-year-old daughter, Riley, who has taught me the masculine feminine game. And men are both, women are both. But women that operate first in their masculine neuter their men. They don't hold space for the man to be the man. And when they don't want to be the man in the household, they expect their husband to step up, but he can't because he hasn't. Because the woman has smothered him with, I got this, I don't need you, I'm running the show type thing. And when a woman can step into her feminine, not being pushed over, not powerful, you can still be powerful and be feminine. Power goes both directions.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes women are more powerful in their feminine than they are in their masculine. And so men desire to be the king.
Mm.
And women truly desire to be the queen. And sometimes we get our wires crossed and the woman's being the king and you can't have two kings. So the man now is being the queen. And then men, I don't know a man that wants to be a queen.
Right.
And so when a man is put in that position, he struggles. And a lot of times men exit stage left. It's like, I'm out of here. And they don't even know why. They don't know they're the queen. They just know they're not living in the way that they were designed to be. So they don't know how to communicate it. They don't understand this feminine masculine game. And so they just call a lawyer and get out.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay for a woman to wear a masculine hat in certain situations. And I think it's okay for a man to wear a feminine hat in certain situations. But the general operating, the modus operandi should be the man should be in the masculine and the woman should be in the feminine.
And once I've surrendered to that, wow, that's where it got exquisite. Allowing myself to surrender and receive, right? And receiving in the past had been really hard for me. And knowing that my husband wants to give, he wants to rub my feet at night. I'm like, huh, what a concept, right? Whereas before I wouldn't allow it. Like, let me take care of you. I got supper to make. Let me take care of you. Once everybody's taken care of, then I can rest. But then allowing myself to surrender and receive. Whew, wow. There's been a lot of growing for me in that. And it just keeps getting better. The more I hands off and allow, I mean, I'm at a peaceful state every day of my life because I don't have to continue like, oh, this is a partnership. I don't have to take care of everything. I could, at times, I feel like I'm slacking up, like, oh, I don't have all that planned out. Like we went to San Francisco yesterday and normally I'd have it planned out, A, B, C. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And it was so great because we just went with the flow and nobody was like jammed up. Nobody was like, okay, we got to get here. No time limits. I didn't even look at my phone. It was so beautiful. So beautiful.
Speaking of beauty, you are more beautiful as a woman in your feminine, and your husband's going to be more attracted to you when you're in your feminine.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
And it's a conscious choice every day. Like I have to wear the little dresses to say, I get to be a girl today. Right? I mean, it's a conscious choice to trigger my brain to say, oh, okay, soften, go within, soften, allow, receive, surrender, all those things that I didn't allow myself in the past. When I do that, it's like he's more magnetic. Like, what are you doing? I want to see what you do. What are you up to over there? And I just laugh because I see myself behaving differently. And then in turn, so does my husband. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. Right. So you're so true. So true.
A couple of thoughts. One is that you actually have more power and respect when you're in your feminine. By surrendering and yielding, you get more respect and more power. Common sense tells you it's the opposite. And then the second thing I would say is that when it affects your kids, the more a woman has a bent towards masculine, career woman, go-getter, type A and everything, achiever, kids want mom.
Yeah.
They want mom. They want soft. They don't want to see mom as a scoreboard. They don't want to see mom as a to-do list.
Yeah.
Right?
True. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go back to your 3-year-old self, what did you want? You wanted a hug.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our kids want. So.
And interesting now, I'm a hugger. I'm one of those, I hug. Because I gave myself what I needed back then, right? And I still do. And I tell people, I'm a hugger. Can I hug you? Right? So I'm still loving on that 3-year-old self every day. And I choose that. So beautiful.
Tisha, I didn't know where this was going to go. You didn't either, but this has been a wonderful conversation.
Okay.
I appreciate your time today. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience that we haven't spoken about?
Yeah, just, mindset is everything. We are, if God created us, God is within us, and we have the power to create the life to be everything that we ever dreamed of. And the power of mindset is, and that's what, made me magnetic to your podcast is I believe in mindset. I believe in a pro mindset. I believe in just really getting correct on our thinking and our line of sight to create the life of our dreams. And if I did it, You can too.
Amen. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I do all things. I do coaching via Zoom. All of my social media handles are my personal brand, Tisha Marie Cain, Cain. It's biblical. It's all worked out perfect. I've also, people have flown me in to have more intimate intensives to do past life transgressions, regressions. So there isn't anything that I won't do to help eliminate and stop the suffering. So you can find me at lifecoachcain.com. That's my website. You can go there and book an appointment with me, reach out. My email's on there too. I love, love, love to help change your life through the power of mindset.
Well, thank you very much for being on today. I want to remind everybody that they can check out Pro Mindset, the book, on craigdomann.com. And I want to thank everybody for listening to this wonderful conversation today. And I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck in your future with your family, with your marriage, with your kids, and with your career.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Thank you. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.